Well, if you don't think money in politics is a problem, you probably should just tune into some other show because it's a big problem, and we're going to talk about it in a big way here today with Kramer McLucky with Iowa Public Interest Research Group. Also, local children's book author Millie Coles is going to join us to talk about her recent book. Later in the program, Steve Falk with the Environmental Law and Policy Center talking passenger rail and progress being made at bringing rail to central Iowa.
Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Good afternoon, Central Iowa. Good afternoon, Des Moines, the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent. Thank you, Brother Trucker, for kicking the show off with your tune downtown. And thank you, Andy Fleming with Brother Trucker, for kicking off another event this coming Sunday. We've got the Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show. This is an effort to keep me from spending any more time in jail or prison. Not a fan of the food. The Wi-Fi sucks. And there's all sorts of other issues. No, seriously, folks, so I'm probably not going to go to prison. But I got to defend myself against Leonard Boswell's ridiculous lawsuit. Ridiculous because we all know where the truth is on this one, but I still have to defend myself. So that costs money, and I appreciate all the folks who've donated so far and appreciate those who are coming to the comedy show, which even if you want me to go to jail, folks, this is going to be a great event. Lee Camp, comedian from New York, is headlining the event. We've also got some local talent, Scott Vermolm, Colin Ryan, and Dan Umtham, in addition to Andy Fleming playing. So check it out, folks. It's going to be this coming Sunday 7 to 9 p.m. at House of Bricks in the East Village. You can get more information on my website or on my Facebook page. There's a Facebook invitation set up for this. So between those two, you should know everything you could possibly know, and do plan to attend. It should be a great time. Okay, so what else? Before we get going here with Kramer with Iowa Public Interest Research Group, I do want to thank a couple other great groups for sponsoring this program. The Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, and also the Iowa chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility. And I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. And I got to tell you, folks, Hawk, I guess is how it's pronounced, a new restaurant in the East Village. They're not sponsoring this program, but I got to tell you, what they're doing is great. Then they got a great spread in the paper today, which I was happy to see, because in my mind, I like to believe that's connected with the fact that I was there for lunch yesterday. I know better, though. But I did get a chance to meet with Suman, a great guy from Bangladesh, has a passion for local foods. 90% of what he serves in this restaurant is from local farms and businesses. It's a great development and really fantastic food. So do check it out, folks. Hoke Restaurant is at the corner of East 5th. Yes, East 5th and Walnut in the Sherman Hill, the East Village neighborhood. And contrast that with the article in today's paper about a very innovative idea that's come from a firm in Texas. Innovative in this context means really, really horrible. A Texas company could have the answer to consumers' unwelcome discovery that just purchased loaves of bread contain mold. Well, you know what? If you just purchased a loaf of bread and it contains mold, then it's been sitting on the shelf way too long. We used to have an expression called day-old bread back when I was a kid. You could buy day-old bread for half the price because it was old. It was a day old. A day old means it's not as good or fresh as it is when it's baked in the first 24 hours. So, the fact that bread is even sitting on shelves for more than a day, or in some cases probably a week, is crazy talk. But no, instead of creating a more local demand for bread baked in our communities and delivered and ready to buy the day of the day it's baked, no, what do we have? We have a company that wants to bombard the bread with microwaves for about 10 seconds, which kills the mold spores. Oh, that makes me feel really good, too. So instead of eating moldy bread, I'm eating nuclear, radiated bread, or who knows what's going to happen to it. Anyway, not everybody thinks it's a great idea, including an Iowa State University professor. This is Ruth McDonald. She's the chairwoman of the Food and Science and Human Nutrition program at ISU. And she points out that, even though you might kill the spores with this microwave process, once you get that bread in your home, there's plenty of mold hanging out in your kitchen. This is just another example of corporate foolhardiness, and I hope they don't dupe many, if any, consumers. But on to other issues. I want to talk with Kramer McLucky about the upcoming Rally to Reclaim Democracy. Kramer is with the Iowa Public Interest Research Group. He and Sonia Ash with IPERG are no stranger to this show, and no stranger to doing great organizing in our local community. Iowa PERG used to be a real hot item, kind of faded from the scene, and it's great to have some strong local young talent back making it a going concern, because they do great research. They've got great history, and they also do great organizing. And we've got an event coming up next week that I think people will want to know about.
That's right, Ed. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Welcome to the show.
Appreciate the kind words about Iowa PERG. We've got coming up next Wednesday, week from today, on the 16th at noon at the Iowa State Capitol, we have the Rally to Reclaim Democracy, which is Iowa PERG, Iowa Move to Amend, and Stand for Iowa, as well as the Iowa Citizen Action Network has signed on.
So you've got 4 co-sponsors of the event.
That's right. We're all joining forces to reclaim our democracy.
Now, Move to Amend focuses on the corporate personhood issue.
Mm-hmm.
The third group you mentioned, Stand...
Stand for Iowa
Stand
with
for
Steve
Iowa.
Toothman.
Oh, okay, that's Steve Toothman's group. Okay, good. And Steve's been working a lot on the whole issue of the influence of the American Legislative Exchange Council on the legislative process, basically being just a wing of the Republican Party. Money finds its way into politics in a lot of ways, through campaign donations, through groups like ALEC, through lobbyists. What do you hope to accomplish with the rally?
Well, one of the main focuses of our rally is to get as many citizen activists as we can to the Capitol and then teach them how to effectively communicate to lawmakers about this issue and then send them out to talk to their legislators and other key decision makers in the Capitol. So we're going to meet at noon in room 116 in the Capitol. We'll hear some words from Senator Jeff Danielson, who's been a big proponent of campaign finance reform. And then we'll do a quick training on how people should communicate effectively about this issue and then send everybody out to talk to their decision makers.
And I think it's really important that you're there and really important that people show up and be a part of that conversation.
Absolutely.
I do want to inject my political realism into the debate as well. Democrats years ago were big fans of campaign finance reform. And now that Mike Ronstall has got religion on how to milk corporations and other special interests for big money, he's not there anymore. I mean, I remember trying to work with him to get something done. Now, the bright side in the Senate, the bright spot in the Senate is the new president of the Senate is Pam Yoakum. And Pam is, if there is an issue that you can identify with Pam Yoakum, this is it. She was working on campaign finance reform for a decade or two before she even became a state legislator 2 decades ago. So she's got tremendous credentials on this.
That's
tremendous
right.
Passion for it.
Pam's a great ally.
Right, and the problem is in the Senate you've had this presumption that the majority leader is the power broker in the Senate, and the president is kind of a figurehead. It doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. It's not that way in the House. In the House, you've got pretty much equal power between the Speaker and the majority leader. So it's more of a matter of a recent tradition, I think, that has led to that situation. Because, Leonard Boswell was at one point president of the Senate. And I assure you, he exercised plenty of clout in that role.
As he's wont to do.
As he's wont to do. And sometimes it was not for the right reasons either. I can tell you that's another story. But so is there hope maybe that Pam in her new position can actually move something forward on this?
Absolutely. Pam's elevation to a leadership position in the Senate, as well as Joe Bolkums, who's another great ally.
And Joe is the one of the assistant leaders? Is he the majority whip?
Yes, whip.
Okay,
yep, that's right. Those are both really great signs for people who want to see changes in the way that money gets into politics here in Iowa. Because you're absolutely right that it's a problem that affects both parties, but there are strong advocates on both sides of the aisle who want to see this change.
Okay, really? Are there strong advocates on the Republican side of the aisle? That's news to me. Or are you just being a nice guy?
A little of both, I guess. There's not too many who are willing to come out because maybe there are elements in their caucus who don't have a problem with the way things operate because Republicans tend to see a little bit more of that outside money than Democrats do.
So it used to be dangerous to come out as a gay or lesbian person. Now it's dangerous to come out as a Republican who supports campaign finance reform?
I think so. But I think we'll find, I have faith that in Iowa we're public-minded folks and, independent minds that will see both sides.
There's no risk of offending the voters of all stripes. Independent, Republican, Democrat, of all stripes, want money to be, are tired of seeing the negative ads, are tired of seeing how prominent money is in politics. There might be different approaches to how they deal with it, but people are tired of that.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think just the crazy spending we saw in the 2012 cycle has gotten everyone very riled up about the amount of ads and robocalls and direct mailings that they were subjected to. Even if they don't really tie that necessarily to outside spending, it's not a difficult leap to make to say, these billionaires were able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars of outside money on campaigns in Iowa, and that's why you were bombarded with this.
Folks, we're talking with Kramer McLucky with Iowa Public Interest Research Group today about campaign finance reform, money in politics generally, the Move to Amend campaign, and the upcoming rally to reclaim democracy at the Iowa State House next Wednesday. You're welcome to join the conversation at 244-0077 or toll free. It's 855-244-0077. Let me ask you this. Again, I'm interested in the idea that there are Republicans who support campaign finance reform. And you think they're there?
I think so. I mean, we saw the state of Montana is deep red, and yet in the 2012 election, 72% of voters supported a resolution opposing Citizens United. That means, a large portion of the Republican electorate there came out for it.
Right.
A similar measure won by an equally large margin in Colorado, which is also a state that's pretty evenly split. So there are Republican voters out there. There are Republican elected officials in Montana and elsewhere who have come out against Citizens United and for campaign finance reform.
Are you in a position where you could out them?
I couldn't out any here in Iowa. I wouldn't want to do that. But
you have them. You think you have Republican
there are
allies.
conversations. I think that there are certainly Republican allies that we'll find on this issue.
I'm going to guess that they might tend to be newer members, folks who have not yet been there so long that they become entrenched and so tied with money that they don't see an alternative.
Sure,
They
and
don't want an
especially
alternative.
folks for whom 2012 is the formative election experience, because as we saw, torrents of outside money on both sides came in, and a lot of people found that very disturbing.
Yeah, a torrent is almost an understatement. We had a drought of rain in this state, but we certainly had a flood of money.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Too bad the money couldn't go into the crops.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. So it's a huge issue, and again, I really know something needs to happen, and I commend you for doing this. Again, you mentioned one of your partners in this is the Move to Amend campaign. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, PERG and Move to Amend actually have very similar focuses on this issue. We are both looking to pass statewide resolutions, eventually leading to a constitutional amendment, all of which call for the overturning of the Citizens United decision and denying corporate personhood as well as money as speech.
Statewide resolutions. We don't do that in Iowa. So you're talking about maybe resolutions across the state at the municipal level, at the city level?
At the municipal level, as well as just joint resolutions of the House and Senate.
Okay, sure. Okay, within the legislature.
Yeah.
All right. That may be as tough a sell as campaign finance reform. What do you think?
To some extent, it's non-binding. It doesn't have statutory implications, which means that, at this point, we're building momentum towards action at the federal level. So I think that maybe some people who would be hesitant to support the actual minutia of any kind of campaign finance law that would be passed here, like the Voter-Owned Iowa Clean Elections Act, which has kind of failed to gain traction.
Which has a great acronym, VOICE.
VOICE, absolutely. Yeah. I think some people who might have doubts about the minutia of how that would work would be willing to support a resolution because, it's very plain and simple. No corporate personhood, no money in speech, and overturn Citizens United. And that's going to allow us to see immediate change for the better if we're able to pass that constitutional amendment.
Now, I'm pleased to know that you've got labor unions on your side in regards sponsoring the rally coming up next week. But nationally, the AFL-CIO was on the wrong side of the Citizens United issue.
Sure. They actually have had a change of heart, though.
Okay, they have.
Their president, Richard Trumka, has since come out and said that Citizens United is a bad deal for workers and for the American people.
Okay. Because at first they came out
and supports Move to Amend.
Okay, they supported the Supreme Court ruling, much to the shock and dismay of a lot of folks, even some folks on the right who said, whoa, this goes too far.
Yeah, but I think they found that they were drastically outspent in 2012 by corporate interests and wealthy individuals like Sheldon Adelson and the Koch brothers.
Yeah.
Although I want to stress that labor unions have very partisan ties, and so while they're supportive of this issue, we don't actually have any formal ties to labor unions on the rally itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, politics is all about building coalitions.
Absolutely.
Whether you're building a political party or the political pressure needed to accomplish legislation. I mean, there was a very interesting coalition formed the last couple of years around the nuclear power issue.
Right.
You had environmental groups and consumer advocate groups. And then you had ARP, the Association of Retired Persons, who were concerned that the proposed nuclear power plant that Mid-American wanted, which would generate about $2 billion in revenue from ratepayers, was going to unfairly dump new costs on seniors who might be on fixed incomes and might be very, very ill-equipped to try to manage such an increase in this time when all sorts of other things are going through the roof.
Yeah,
so that was a very powerful coalition. It was successful. We may need it again this year. I'm not sure how badly Mike Gronstal is going to push for his nuclear power plant.
We'll see. We haven't heard too much. We certainly haven't seen much activity from Mid-American about that, which is a good sign. Although who knows what's going on behind closed doors.
Right. But yeah, my point is, though, that the broadening of a coalition is always a helpful thing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's good that you've done that.
And that's why we're looking for more libertarian and conservative interests who see that money's having a really pernicious influence on politics and is just circumventing the voice of actual voters and instead pumping money into the system to convince people who are low information voters. So we want a broad coalition of everybody who sees the problems with money in politics.
All right, great. Well, folks, you ought to come. I'm going to try to be there myself. It's this coming Wednesday, January 16th in room 116 of the Iowa State Capitol. That's on what we tend to call the first floor, but by a normal person's reckoning would be the second floor.
That's right.
And again, the time, 10
at noon.
Noon.
Room 116 at noon in the Capitol in January 16th.
Senator Jeff Danielson again. Senator Jeff Squeaker Danielson, who always seems to win by just a fairly tight margin, not as tight as last time, from Cedar Falls, Waterloo, will be addressing the group, and he's been supportive. Right. That's encouraging. All right, so folks, you can also get information about this event on my website. Go to fallonforum.com, click on events, and you'll see it there listed among all the other great stuff happening in our state. So good luck, Kramer, with that. And
thanks
folks,
very much.
I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway is our neighborhood grocery store. Do you go to Gateway?
Absolutely. All the time.
Good.
Love it. Love the salad bar there.
Thank them for supporting the Fallon Forum.
I will.
This is a quid pro quo, folks. I'm big into local businesses. I will only accept sponsorships from local businesses and nonprofits doing good work. In return, if you believe in helping the alternative to right-wing radio, this is a chance to do so by going to our local grocery store, Gateway Market. Keep your money in the community. Again, not just groceries, but breakfast, lunch, and supper, a wonderful cafe, and a catering service. So check them out, folks, at 20th and Woodland in downtown Des Moines. We'll be back in a few minutes. Millie Coles is going to join us. She's a gal I've known for a while. She's a local author, and she has a tragic story to tell regarding what transpired to inspire her to write this book, which we hope will help other people who've also had situations where they might have lost a kid to cancer. We'll be back in a few minutes, folks.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, people. Thank you, Babers Neighbors, for kicking off this conversation with their tune, Ode to Jones. Again, thanks to Kramer McLucky for joining us for the start of the show. And meant to make a plug for another iPerg event coming up. This is Thursday, next week, January 17th, the day after the rally. This is going to be a screening and presentation of a movie called We're Not Broke. We Are Not Broke. It's directed by Victoria Bruce. It's going to be January 17th at 7 p.m. at the First Unitarian Church on the south side of Des Moines. Before we go to our conversation with Millie Coles, I want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the show. And I also want to share what I thought was a pretty hilarious little video. And the video is more than just this one spot we're going to share, though. But it's an interview with a 1-year-old. And this particular segment of the interview talks about Obama and the effort to capture and kill Osama bin Laden.
As we've seen, President Obama used certain tactics to capture Osama bin Laden, and a lot of people have criticized that. So I guess my question for you is, in situations like that, how do you handle that? How would you respond? Well, I agree that bin Laden should have been taken out, but I don't necessarily agree that laughing is an appropriate way to respond to anyone's death.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Anyway, that guy has had it done pretty well with that video. I think it has like 2.5 million hits now. Anyway, a little humor in politics is always good. And folks, I want to remind you, if you like a little bit of humor, come on down to House of Bricks this coming Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. House of Bricks. Lee Camp is going to be in town. Lee Camp's first ever comedy performance here in Iowa. And looking forward to having him headline an event that, again, is in part tied to me defending myself against Leonard Boswell's lawsuit, thus the name Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter, but should be a great event with some local comedy as well, local talent. So we keep moving back and forth from serious issues to a little bit of levity, and we're done with levity for a while because we got a very serious conversation to have with my friend Millie Coles, who I've known for a while. We have worked together on the equality issue for the GLBT community. She had a son who died tragically of cancer, and we've had conversations on the show before. Actually, when I was gone, John Krieg hosted a conversation with Gerald Blanchard about dealing with trauma, with grief, and it's an important conversation. I'm a big believer in not just tackling the issues that are front and center, whether it's at the State House or U.S. Congress, but tackling issues that affect us directly in our lives personally. And I commend Millie for giving me a call, and for writing the book that she has written, and for taking the time to come on the show and discuss what is going to be a very painful and difficult conversation. Millie, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Ed, for having me on the show today.
Yeah, and
well, I wrote Where's Charlie?
It's a children's book, too.
Yes, it's a children's book, and you have to sort of take note when things happen in your life that you don't understand. My cousin and I worked on the book, who took some of the pictures, and I took some of the pictures personally. But it came out 12/12/12. As you know, on 12/14, we had the tragic shooting on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And so kind of makes your hair stand up on the back of your head.
Yeah, a tragic shooting of what, 20-something children.
Which we had no idea of or anticipated. But we wrote the book just sort of to let little children know that Spirit still talks to you after your child is gone. And after
so kind of for siblings of a child,
right? And my son did have siblings on his dad's side, and so I had them in mind when I was meditating and trying to figure out what the message was that I wanted to put across. And my son does communicate with me through his birthday, through numbers, and they show up in all kinds of ordinary and unordinary places. He also communicates with me through feathers, which you don't see feathers in the book, but as you'll see that many of the pictures that we took for the book have ducks and waterfowl in the book. So so that's sort of how it kind of morphed on its own, and we just kind of went with it. And we think that we have a good product, and we want to try to get it into the right hands of the right people.
So, and you published it. Is it self-published or?
Yes, I self-published it on Lulu.com.
Okay.
And hopefully, the hope is to be picked up by a larger publisher. But
you're working on that.
We're working on that by getting the word out there that the book is done and that we think we have a good product.
Yeah, great. Okay, so the audience obviously is parents, really. I mean, parents make these decisions. Children don't go out and pick out a book, but parents who want their children to understand better a tragedy that might affect their family, or even their school. I mean, you mentioned the situation, the horrible massacre in Sandy Hook.
Right.
I mean, I could see a book that has that perspective and that intent as being very helpful for all the survivors who are affected by that situation.
Right. And initially when I wrote the book, I had, no attachment to any type of audience or anything. Basically, it was written from a perspective to help me heal because grief has affected my life in enormous ways. And
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
And it's affected my ability to hold a job down or to work in a conventional setting anymore because I just don't really have a lot of tolerance for the normal BS that goes on in jobs. So,
well, and so your son died at age 21. Is that correct?
He was 21 when he died, and he was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. It's called chordoma. So one of the dreams that I have for the book is that we'll help start a foundation in his name to help other families that are dealing with cancer.
Yeah, and that was 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, again, the book, in addition to being helpful to others, has been therapeutic for you as well.
It has, and people who are grieving, tears come up at odd and strange times, like they're coming up now. You can't control them; they just come when they come, and you go with them. But yeah, it's been very therapeutic, and I do have a mental health background and worked in the mental health field, so I know that it's a topic that people don't like to talk about with their kids. But it does go through some ways where spirit shows up and where water and waterfowl is in the book. And it just comes from a child's perspective of missing the child after they're gone.
But still knowing that in spirit and in other ways that are
measurable.
That they're. I mean, you mentioned his birthday was October 12th.
His birthday was October 12th.
And so, and you see that number keeps popping up in your life in mysterious ways.
Right, and I did write a little thing in my Facebook page about a friend of mine who showed up in my life who has since passed on and had pancreatic cancer. But, I mean, for a long time I was sitting at home feeling sorry for myself and wondering why these numbers were showing up in my life, what's going on. And then later I met her through another group, and it turns out that her address was 1012. That was the house number of her address. Huh. I won't give out the other part of her address
okay,
for her anonymity.
Right. No need for that, yeah.
But just things like that just give you chills because you're trying to communicate with spirit to find out what's going on. And then something like that happens. And
well, I mean, I commend you for doing this. Not just, I mean, we all, sometimes when people have a traumatic experience, they hole up, they go inside, and maybe you did that for a while too. And maybe in some cases it's necessary for a while. But to me, my experience is if healing is really going to occur, you got to get out of yourself. You've got to look at the bigger picture.
Right.
There's always somebody, no matter how bad our lot might be, there's always somebody who's got it worse. Or
exactly.
Or if we've gone through the grieving stage to a certain point, there's always somebody for whom the grief is fresh.
Right.
And much more poignant.
And we all, in ancient times, that's how people healed, because through the oracle story. So that's something that's been lost in our communities, I think, is sharing our stories. And I think it's really necessary.
If this book is successful, do you think you have another book in you?
Absolutely. In fact, it was finally decided that I just needed to write something just to get some part of my story out of me. And so that's how this developed. I had no idea how it was going to turn out, or I had to let go of any kind of outcome. I just sort of let it flow and just followed the guidance that I had. Originally, I had an illustrator in mind to have the pictures drawn, and those just seemed to be falling to the wayside. And then my cousin, who also took some of the pictures in the book, she said, well, why don't you just use your son Charles's real pictures? And so then I started digging through all these pictures, which obviously brings up a lot of emotion when you're bringing up all the memories. And so that's what we did. We went through my pictures and we found the ones that fit the part of the story that I was talking about, and then went from there. And then we came out really nicely.
Well, I'd strongly encourage you to try to get the books into the bookstore just downstairs from where we broadcast here in the Skywalk, and the other local bookstores. Alice's place, the Beaverdale Books out in Beaverdale. I'm guessing they might be interested in a book that again a local book that has that kind of appeal. So yeah, I mean, whatever we can do to help encourage people to know that this book exists, and for those who might benefit from it to get a hold of it, I'm happy to help.
Right, and I'm really appreciative of you having me on the show. I can't tell you how nervous I was to come on the show, even though we're friends. And then I sat down and I saw little trinkets of everything's going to be just fine because it says strangers are just friends waiting to happen or something like that, and it's a God thing, and so
I'm pretty scary.
It's not that. It's just the new experiences are always a little stressful. So I really appreciate you having me on the show, Ed.
Thank you. Well, best of luck with that, and I'll give you at the end of this segment. I'll give some contact information for Millie so folks can know how to reach her. I do want to talk about one thing briefly. We hope to have more conversation about this in the near future. By now, everybody knows about the situation involving Melissa Nelson, the dental assistant who had worked honorably for 10 years at a dentist office in Fort Dodge, only to be fired because she was too darn hot. Essentially, that's what this is about. I first heard about this while I was visiting with my mother over the Christmas break in Massachusetts, and around 11:30 at night, a local talk show host started talking about Iowa. Well, my mom's ears perked up. She turned the radio on a little louder so I could listen. And yeah, they're talking about how backward we must be because of this ridiculous Supreme Court ruling. I called into the show and said, our Supreme Court actually tends to do pretty well. And I pointed out the marriage equality ruling as one example. But again, Marcia Turnus is no longer on the Supreme Court, so maybe it's possible that her perspective as a woman on what is now an all-white, all-male Supreme Court, her perspective might have helped them clear their thinking a bit. Although apparently the Des Moines Register also needs a come-to-Jesus moment on clarity of thinking, too, because they agreed with the court's ruling. I was happy to see Paige Fiedler, the lawyer representing Melissa Nelson, write an Iowa View piece in today's paper. So good for her. We hope to have her on this program as well, if she'll consent to do that. She points out that, the ridiculousness of this woman how she looks, who she is. I mean, she's never done anything inappropriate. It really was the dentist's inability to control himself and his wife's insistence that this woman be fired because she saw her as a threat. Okay, the Register, writes Paige Fiedler, like the court, places the burden for controlling men's sexual feelings on the behavior of one woman. So, again, Iowa Civil Rights Act forbids discrimination that is based even in part on an employee's sex. Suppose that instead of women working alongside her husband, Miss Fiedler writes, it was black people in the workplace who made Mrs. Knight nervous. I mean, so for some reason we are able to fathom why that would be unjust, but we can't fathom why this is unjust. It's as unjust in this case as it would be if a person was fired because the employer discovered that they were gay or lesbian. And we had that happen not too many years ago, a particularly noteworthy case in Davenport. This kind of discrimination, whether it's based on color, on sex, on sexual orientation, it's wrong, and it needs to be challenged. We all ought to be dismayed that the Supreme Court ruled thus. We ought to be doing what we can to encourage the Des Moines Register to review its decision and its position on this. And also, as Paige points out, what we can do, again, Melissa Nelson, she's lost her job. The court's dismissed her case. The last word has been said on this. But what we can do is fight to change legislation so that this kind of ruling cannot happen again. There's an effort to do that. There's a legal loophole that could be plugged with appropriate legislative action. I encourage people to take a look at that as it moves through the system and do what you can to help out. So anyway, thank you again for, we're going to be back with Steve Falk here after the break. I want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the show. Tim Reynolds is the founder and brains and brawn behind Reynolds Energy Solution. He'll do an audit for you it'll take you about 2 or 3 hours. It's very, very thorough, far more thorough than the audits you might get from Mid-American Energy. He'll identify ways in which you can save not just energy but money, helping you reduce your carbon footprint so you feel better about yourself, but also you'll save some money and be able to pay off other bills, because which one of us is not in debt anymore unless you're the upper crust? So yeah, give Tim a shout. Again, a free audit. He's at 802-2801, 802-2801, or online at ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com. And again, thanks to Millie Coles for joining us. And to, real quick, Millie, again, if folks want to find your book.
You can find my book at lulu.com.
Lulu?
LULU.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Lulu.com. Again, thank you for coming on the show, and folks, check it out. I think it's
Thank you, Ed, for having me.
a great thing you're doing, not just for yourself, obviously, and there's certainly that, but for others as well.
It's
So,
definitely meant for a larger audience
yes,
than just me.
I understand. Folks, we'll be back in a few minutes. Steve Falk will be my guest. He's with the Environmental Law and Policy Center. We're talking about progress being made on passenger rail.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito, online fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano, and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to the show, folks. Sporting my 99% shirt today. Where do we go? Whoop, there we go. 99%. Yeah, this shirt I got quite a lot of play during the Iowa caucuses because I was wearing it during interviews on C-SPAN and Rachel Maddow and Democracy Now! I decided it was time to get it out. It feels like spring out there, and maybe we're seeing the Iowa. Maybe we'll see the Iowa equivalent of an Arab Spring again this year. Because gosh, we sure need it. Even though the economy's improving, things certainly aren't going the direction they should be in this country. That's another story. I want to thank Pumptown for kicking off this conversation, and I want to thank Ritual Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show, and remind folks to come to the Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show this coming weekend. It's Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. at the House of Bricks. Lee Camp is headlining the event. Should be a blast. Okay, so I want to look at this story in the paper today. And we all kind of knew this, but now it is absolutely official. 2012 was the warmest U.S. year on record. Every state had a warmer than average year. Every single state. 19 states, stretching from the west to the east, coming right through Iowa, had record warmth in 2012. And, I know there are still the doubters out there, the people who want to say, oh, well, that's just sunspots or cow flatulence or something or other. But looking at people who really know this stuff, Kevin Trenberth, who's been on this program before, he's the head climate analyst with the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. He's quoted in an AP story today saying, quote, "These records do not occur like this in an unchanging climate, and they are costing many billions of dollars." In other words, this isn't going to happen. You don't see this kind of dramatic shift coast to coast. This kind of record-breaking coast to coast if everything is staying the same. Climate is changing, folks. We need to get used to it, and we need to do something about it. And here to talk about one thing we can do about it with me is Steve Falk. Steve is a former legislator. We served together, and we get along real well.
Yeah, absolutely, in the same caucus.
Even though we were both in the same caucus, we got along really well. Steve was an exciting addition to the Iowa legislature because he beat Chuck Hurley, and there were a lot of folks who were really happy about that. I like Chuck personally, but
Chuck's
on issues,
a very nice gentleman.
On issues,
like
you
him.
and I have a lot more in common than me and Chuck.
Right.
So, and you're now doing some really good work with the Environmental Law and Policy Center, and
Yes,
one of your work is on Amtrak.
Right. EOPC, we're headquartered in Chicago, but I'm here in the Iowa office. And so Chicago EOPC has been working on passenger rail for the last 15, 20 years. And if you look at what the impact on passenger rail has had in Illinois, it's just amazing, phenomenal about the build-out and passenger up and down the state. And
so not just in Chicago, but from Chicago on downstate.
Yes, this is intercity Midwest rail that we're talking about. So this isn't passenger rail that's going to go across the country. It's not going to New York. It's not going to Detroit. It's going to Chicago. And that's the spoke and hub system of rail.
Right.
You know, this line actually was completed in 1871. So
really?
This is kind of going back to the future, so to speak, because it was a passenger rail service to Chicago. So it is to that point again. And the reason why this is necessary, DOT had some data that between 2010 and 2030, and you know Interstate 80 right outside the door here is a major truck route.
Right.
Between 2010 and 2030, they are expecting vehicle miles traveled on I-80 to increase by 65%.
And see, that's a problem for a lot of reasons. And one, the reason I just cited about climate change.
Yes. And that's why an environmental group is active in lobbying, talking to policymakers, convincing Iowans that this is a good deal for Iowa. It will cut down on congestion. And, of course, what that means is less vehicles on the roads, and so what that means is, it's less carbon.
So we see tremendous success in the state just east of us, and we see a progress report that talks, I think, very compellingly about the wisdom of the appropriate investment in rail from Chicago to Davenport to Iowa City, Des Moines, and on to Council Bluffs, Omaha.
Correct. And this is what's called a Tier 1 environmental impact statement. Is what this study is. And it is available online on the DOT website. And this Tier 1 study was supposed to pick the preferred corridor, because there are 5 rail corridors going across Iowa. So this study would pick the preferred corridor, identify communities that would be served as stops, the frequency of service, the speed of service, and then a potential, the plan for the phased-in implementation of the service. So this was important work that the governor asked for over a year and a half ago. It is complete, and it is up for public comment actually right now. So I would encourage people to get onto the Department of Transportation website and search for the Tier 1 EIS passenger rail report and make public comments. They are accepting those right now. So this report looked at all the alternative routes that go across Iowa. There was a northern route that went from Fort Dodge to Dubuque, another one through Ames, another one through Cedar Rapids, and of course the route you articulated from Council Bluffs to Des Moines to Iowa City, Quad Cities. And then there's the southern route. And that is
that's the existing route.
Amtrak, but that is a national route. In other words, that's the California Zephyr.
Sure.
And that goes from Chicago to California. So that is much more like what you would think of a Greyhound, where there's a lot of stops. There are some delays. It's not as fast.
Ideally, there aren't a lot of stops. You're
on the route we're talking about, the intercity route between us that we're talking today, does not have as many stops, so it will be quicker than the California Zephyr.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And to me, all of those routes make sense. We ought to have every single one of those operating. I think, again, maybe I'm biased because I live in Des Moines, but the largest population concentration of those options is right through the center of the state. Iowa City, Des Moines, and then obviously, Omaha, Council Bluffs. People don't realize Council Bluffs is the largest metropolitan region in the state.
Yes, and that really, this study shows at a very high level how many people are expected to ride this per year. And when you add on Council Bluffs, Omaha, that really is what makes this route work, because that's 1.2 million passenger per year on this line. So this is something that is something we've got to get on board with.
Yeah, and yet we have opposition among Republicans in the Iowa legislature. I mean, for all of my problems with Chet Culver, this is something he was good at. He was pushing for passenger rail, and he and the legislature helped approve I think it was a $20 million match.
Correct.
To $80 million in federal money.
Right.
For it was a 4-year program, I think. 4-year investment.
It was going to pay for the infrastructure upgrades to get it to Iowa City.
Right.
And those resources are still available, the federal resources. So Iowa does need to yet make that match. And Governor Culver was heading that direction.
Well, he did.
Yes. And it was after the 2010 elections, the politics changed in Iowa. And you know as well as I do that politics is a quirky business. And at one time, passenger rail service had great support. It was nonpartisan. It was not a political issue. It was something that many governors, Republicans and Democrats, both supported. But since 2010, things have changed. The political landscape has changed. And so there have been a lot more questions. And I think what that will do in the long run will make this a better alternative when we answer all those questions, because it is something that Iowans need to, not only do they need to use, but we need to have some skin in the game, because this will benefit our state. So there's going to be some operational costs that we're going to need to come up with.
But Branstad, back when he was first elected, he ixnayed the appropriation. But has he changed his tune on that? I know he's getting pressure from chambers of commerce. I mean, this is every once in a while I find an issue where me and big business are on the same side of the issue, and I'm all sorts of giddy and excited about that because it doesn't happen that often. But this is one. Where chambers of commerce, big business, and Ed Fallon all agree, and so it's kind of a woohoo moment. But
it's a sweet spot.
Yeah, it is a sweet spot.
We need to take advantage of that.
But one guy who was just totally cozy with big business and always comfortable with everything they want to do is Governor Branstad. So I'm thinking maybe he's getting some pressure from these business interests who want this thing, who see the value in having train traffic across Iowa.
And we want to make, and I think this report, since Governor called for this report, there are things and improvements that this report can talk about. So then it gives him the opportunity to say, hey, this is a better deal now. Yeah. We are looking at 1.2 million riders per year. So this report gives him some additional reasons to be for this.
Okay.
So that's what we're continuing with the pressure.
Has he responded to the report yet?
No, he has not.
Okay.
But we're waiting to see his budget. Of course, that will kind of indicate
later this month
where he's thinking, because the federal government has the resources for Iowa, and they've agreed to hang on to them. But they say, we want to see progress. We want to see you making progress toward this line. And so having this report in hand, I think, will demonstrate we're seeing some progress. So I'm not sure if we're actually going to need to come up with extra resources this year or not. We're working with the Department of Transportation. Director Trombino has been a great advocate. He sees,
and that's good. And he's a Governor Branstad appointee as well.
Correct. So he is, and his approach to this is, hey, this isn't just about passengers. This is really about freight and passenger, because this is an existing freight line.
Isn't that part of the problem? You've got freight and passengers traveling the same line, and the freight always seems to bump the passenger train, and so the passengers are late.
Well, that's it. That's a very good point. So what this report put in the report, they are citing side tracks. And so they built that into this report. So what that means is that a freight train will not wait for a passenger train, and a passenger train will not wait for a freight train.
You have multiple lines.
There will be double tracks, parallel tracks over certain parts of this line. And so it's then just a matter of logistics and scheduling. And this report also is looking at coming, round trips from Des Moines to Chicago of 7 a day.
Wow, that's good.
And Omaha at 5 a day. So there will be passenger trains on there not waiting for freight, and freight not waiting for passenger, because they're both sharing the same line.
It's good to hear, and I'm excited to see other developments in alternative transportation as well. I just got done with a 5-day megabus trip from Des Moines to Florida. I mean, it didn't have to be 5 days. I stretched it out so I could visit people along the way, but it was good. I mean, the bus was on time for the most part. There was only one driver that was kind of a little bit testy. And overall, it was a great trip. The Wi-Fi didn't work as well as I'd like it to, but I'm told by Megabus people that was an anomaly. It usually is working better than it used to. So, a combination of transportation works best when it's diverse, when you've got good access for automobiles, when you've got various types of train options, when you've got bus options within your community and intercity and cross-country. And so I'm excited to see these things happening, and I hope our governor gets on board.
We are working hard to make that happen, and the different modes of transportation is a great point, because when you think about the cities along the corridor, Ames is not that far, Cedar Rapids is not that far from Iowa City, or even Sioux City to Council Bluffs, where that station will be. As a part of this, other states do this and other lines. Where you could buy one ticket. Say you live in Ames, you can buy one ticket, get on a bus from Ames to Des Moines. It will drop you off right at the depot, right on time. Mm-hmm. You'll get on the train, take your trip, come back, and that bus will be waiting for you when you get back to Des Moines and take you back to Ames. So that bus service will make it so that there will be more. This will capture more Iowans,
right?
And that's part of this plan as well.
Good. Well, one tragedy, you and I have both traveled by train before. My bike, despite being on this planet for 20-something years now, almost 30 years, has never yet traveled on a train. Bike, I know you're probably feeling a little bit remorseful about that.
As a cute little trike, I always dreamed of riding on a train. Always. Like me sitting in one of those booth seats and looking out the window, and it's the Old West. And there's
Okay, that's cute, but that's probably not going to happen. But what I'd like to know, Steve, is do you think the passenger rail system across the state will accommodate bikes? Will people be able to bring their bike on so that when they get to where they're going, that can be their transportation.
Well, I certainly hope so, because I, for one, will be taking my bike to Chicago, getting off at Union Station and getting on my bike and tooling around Chicago downtown on my bike. So Ed, I'm going to have to find out and make sure that somehow is a part of this plan, because you and I are absolutely on the same page in this.
Is your bike married?
No, I have.
Neither is my bike. I mean, I don't know. Bike? That's right.
Almost there.
You're engaged. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
No offense. Anyway.
All right.
Well, I hope, because finding Des Moines has done a good job with that. The Des Moines bus system, as of about 10 years ago, started accommodating bicycles on buses. Megabus does not yet do that. Greyhound does not yet do that. I think Amtrak does.
Yeah, I know that on some light rail.
Yeah.
I've had my bike on the light rail in Minneapolis. So hopefully there will be an opportunity we can stow it on this line.
All right. Steve Falk, folks. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. And I'd love to get some updates from you as we move forward in terms of what the legislature does on this issue. Again, we're waiting to hear from Governor Branstad to see how he responds to the latest progress report on rail across Iowa. So,
will do, Ed.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Folks, tomorrow, Dr. Karen Huffer is going to join us. She's been on the show before. She's a nationally recognized doctor from Colorado Springs. We'll also have a local doctor, Dr. David Drake, talking about obesity and healthy lifestyles as we move forward into 2013. Also tomorrow, Clementine Carl's going to join us. She's one of the state workers who were listed in the article in the Des Moines Register. I call it an article, but maybe it should be called a witch hunt. This was an article that tried to make some horrible case about state workers being schleps because there were a handful that were fired and later rehired. We're going to talk with somebody on the front lines about that. And on Friday, Dr. Charles Goldman is going to join me for a conversation about the death penalty and gun control and what might happen on those issues at the State House this year. Again, I want to thank Ritual Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show. I call Ritual Cafe my office because I'm there so often. They have great vegetarian food, fantastic tea, and yesterday, the Mom, cover your ears. They had a piece of apple pie, homemade apple pie, that was better than yours. Okay, Mom, you didn't hear that. The apple pie was amazing, folks. Check out Ritual Cafe at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. I want to thank Maddie Arrington for being my wonderful producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio for the show, and remind you to stay tuned for Bradshaw On every day from 1:30 to 2:30. I'll be back tomorrow, folks. Have a nice day.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.